Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be building a Featherlite quadcopter, and I am so excited for this. So let's talk about some of the components real quick before we go into more detail. This is the Featherlite frame from Aeronaut FPV. This was provided to me a week ago maybe, or 2 weeks ago. And when I did the video, I thought it was a 4-inch. But when I put everything on top of it, it turns out to be a 5-inch, which is pretty insane. You know, I put all these components together just for like a preview maybe or something, and I stuck it on the scale, and it was 150 grams for a 5-inch. 150 grams with the motors and everything. That's just insane. So this is going to be pretty quick. So let's just talk about the motors now. The motors, I don't have the newest, baddest motors. These motors are the DYS 1806 2300 kV. I bought these 7 months ago or 8 months ago. And, you know, let me put this into perspective. These were the motors we were using on the ZMR 250, which was a 6-inch quadcopter, basically. And we were using 1806, and it was these motors to be exact. And there was other motors also, but we were using these little guys right here. So if these could lift up a ZMR 250, which weighed over 350 grams, imagine what it's going to do to this. And plus, it's the only thing I had right now because I really want to get this built. And it's the only thing that'll fit, as you could tell here. And these are so old that basically the fitting isn't really correct either. As you can tell here, there's no way for me to align this here. So I'm going to have to live with that until I get it new motors. And I will be getting it new motors, and that's for sure. So these are for the motors. These are pretty crazy. They do have this little adapter because it also takes smaller, propellers. But yeah, so these are the motors here. I just really wanted to build this and seeing how well it's going to perform. Obviously it comes with everything there. So let's talk about some of the components. I'm going to be using the HGLRC F428 stack. Now this is a 4-in-1 ESC that is rated for 28 amps, and it's a 20x20, so this is small, it's tiny, it's really light. And I did a previous video on this where I told you why I really love this. This thing is just insanely awesome. However, I don't know how good it's going to be with an 1806 motor. I've tested this on a 3-inch, which was a 1407 motor. But the video feed was absolutely spectacular, and this is why I'm doing it again. And this is the second one I purchased because the first one I also ripped off these pads. So take that into consideration when you get this. These pads rip easy, so make sure you secure the Xt60 or Xt30 connector to your frame as tight as possible. It does have pads on both sides, and I actually ripped both sides, and I'm very frustrated. But that's not the point. Even though that happened, you know, it's tiny pads. What do you expect? It's pretty brittle, not brittle, it's pretty weak. But the overall performance and its capabilities are just insane. So, you know, nothing could be perfect. That's all I'm trying to say. But it's a very good one. It's a very good stack that I really love. So it is a BP2 chip. It's rated for 28 amps, like I said, which means it runs DShot 600, and it does have pins to connect the HGLRC F4 flight controller, which has OSD, and it's also 20x20. So this is going to keep our overall stack absolutely clean, and these guys take 2 to 4S, which is perfect and plenty enough for me. So this is the stack that we're going to be using inside. Now let's talk about the receiver. It's an XM Plus. I love it. It's small, it's tiny, it works. All right, so let's talk about the camera. So the camera I'm using a runcam Sparrow. This is the first one, not the second generation. I did salvage this from my 3-inch because I ripped the pads off of it. Now what's so cool about this, I also got it the runcam VTX, which comes with an adapter to actually connect to the back of the micro, which is insane. Look at the amount of space we're going to be just saving here. You know, you have your camera and your VTX right there. So this is everything right here. Can you believe this? And how much does this even weigh? This is like super light weight here. Let's see. I'm still waiting for my precise scale because I know some of you hate this scale, but it still gets the job done for right now. So let's just see. Here's the camera, VTX, this and that, and I have the adapters for the frame. All of this is 20 grams. That is crazy. That is just insane. I'm just very happy. I couldn't wait to wake up this morning to actually get this built. All right. So let me go ahead and prepare everything. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna install. Let's do it together actually. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna install this guy. So let me show you this. So this frame takes a 30x30 flight controllers and ESCs, and it also takes 20x20. Now the way it takes 20x20 is to give you these adapters, and they are TPU mounted, so they do provide dampening, as you can tell right there. And the tolerance is insane. That means it fits insanely perfect. Even the M2 screws, I just screwed them into the 3D printed part perfectly. They didn't just slide in and out and loose. No, I had to screw them in there, which I really loved. I really did love. So let me just take this correct, because, you know, I have two motors which the wires are hanging off the sides, and I want those to be on the inner part of the frame. Just double checking here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it like, let's see, this is if this was the front, that would be bad. I would want that to be in the back somehow, like this. Okay, that's good. This is here. Sorry, we could change that later or something. All right, so let's check this out. So what I'm going to do here, let's just zoom in a little bit. All right, is just basically slide it through, and the tolerance, like I said, is just insane. So just find it, align it, and it goes through. Look how good that is. It's not going to be loose. It's pretty firm in, and that one came out, but that's fine. So that's going to provide dampening for the whole overall stack, which is an awesome thing. And we actually put this the wrong way, because we were supposed to put it like this. All right, so there's the front. You can see the arrow on the ESC, so that's what we want, because the flight controller also, you have to follow that arrow to get it installed perfect. Look at that. That's just, oh man, it's so satisfying, very satisfying. All right, so what we're gonna do first is we're gonna actually move this. Actually, that's not what we were gonna do. Let's start with the flight controller. So we're gonna install the camera, VTX, and receiver first, and then we will go ahead and solder the motors to the ESC, and then we're done. That's it. It's that easy. So let's go ahead and let me prepare everything for us to start soldering the flight controller, the camera, VTX, receiver, and all that kind of crazy good stuff. And by the way, they're connected via pins to the ESC, so you don't have to worry about soldering your motor wires. So it'll keep the overall stack insanely clean, reduce weight from wires, and I'm in love. I don't know if you guys can notice. Maybe it's very opinionated, but because I used it and I loved it, and I'm just I'm gonna go ahead and get me a couple more. So let me prepare everything, and I'll be right back, guys. All right, guys, so now everything is prepared. We're going to start preparing the pads first. So let's go ahead and start with here, positive, minus, and the S bus, because that's for our receiver. So it's not going to fit straight flush because of the pins on the bottom, but, you know, just use some little pressure. Make sure when you solder things like this, you keep your forearms on the edge of the table. This way it gives you more stability. So let's go ahead and set this up. So here's the S bus. It's right there. So let me just center this for you guys to see. And let's go ahead and set this up. So here's S bus. So, and you got to be very careful with this. Very careful. I can't even tell which one's side. Okay, there we go. Because look how close everything is. And then here's our ground for our receiver. And then here's our positive, I think, for our receiver. I can't see. It's very far from me. So if I mistake what I'm, you know, if I'm saying the wrong thing, excuse me on that. All right, so that's done. So let's go ahead and do the camera and VTX. Now this is going to be, this is very nice. Now check this out. I didn't actually notice this before, but you have your negative, your camera, and the positive for the 5-volt for your camera. And now they're expecting you to put this on hyperlights, which means you're going to be putting a VTX, which takes a raw input, the raw voltage input, anywhere between a 7 to a 24 volt input. So what they have done here is you get the ground for your VTX, you get the VTX, and you get battery power, which is the VCC, which is the raw battery power. So you don't have to take your VTX if you're using one of those big VTXs. You don't have to take it all the way to the ESC or find the power rail. You could just go ahead and look how clean that'll make it. However, for us here, the VTX is going to be powering the camera, and this VTX takes 5 volts. So we're going to skip the battery here, and we're going to skip the ground here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just put the VTX's power on the 5-volt rails right here. We could actually use these two rails, and then the cam and the VTX pad, and we're done. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing I want to do is install my power. Let's do the power first. So let's go ahead. Actually, first we need to set up the pads. Let's do that together. All right. So we said we're going to need the ground, which is this one. That's ground right there. That's what we're going to use. Okay, because they're right next to each other. And here's 5-volt. And here's the camera. This is where the camera's yellow wire. And here's the VTX right there. And that's it. We just solder these. How many wires? 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 wires to this flight controller, and we're done. And then we just solder the motors, and we just plug it in. So let's go ahead and do that now. So here's the power. I'm going to go ahead and trim these. I've already prepared the wires. I've just spun them and then twisted them, and I've added solder to them. So right now what I want to do is just go ahead and trim them because they're a bit too long, and the components on this flight controller are very close to each other. So let's do that together. All right, and all right, so there we go. All right, so we're gonna do the ground first. So let's do the ground, which is right there, the minus sign. Ground is minus. All right. And what I'm going to do is set this up like this so I don't have movement, thus not hitting any component. And I'm soldering at 362 degrees Celsius. I find it the best for me, or my solder. All right, now we're just going to solder the 5 volt, and you guys should be able to see that. It's right there. So let's install that. Beautiful. All right, so now let's just see. Okay, now the VTX, which is this white wire. It's a bit too long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to also trim it right now. So there we go. And we're going to trim this guy. There we go. Now let's install him on VTX. Nice. And now the camera, which is right there. Okay, so that was easy. Now let's go ahead and grab our receiver. Thought I lost it for a second. There we go. I'm just checking the wires. Some of them might be a little bit too long here, so I'm just going to trim some off. There we go. And this one's too long, I think. There we go. And there we go. All right. Just double checking my wiring here. Yes, okay. So we'll twist them later. So let's go ahead and bring this guy in. And we need this side now. So there's 5 volt ground S bus. So 5 volt was first, so the red wire. Okay. Make sure it's centered for you guys. And I don't want this guy to move. There we go. So 5 volt we said, ground, and then S bus. There's 5 volt. And here's going to be ground. There's ground. And here's S bus. My God, I'm loving this build. It's just going to be so quick. I think that so far, this whole process took me 5 minutes and 38 seconds, depending on my editing. But right now, it's been just 5 minutes. And I finished that. So let's go ahead now and just grab the ESC and start preparing the pads for this guy. So, all right. So let's just prepare the pads. All right. And then we're just going to start soldering the motors. I think I'm going to have to extend one wire. And yeah, I'm going to have to be careful with the, I'm going to have to be careful with the TPU mount not to melt it, because I'm right next to it here. There we go. You got to be very careful not to hit anything, because all the components are right next to each other. Okay. Nice. Just want to touch this one a little bit. There we go. Make sure you constantly clean the tip, especially on smaller joints, because that could create problems for you in the future. Or right now, actually, it would just be very nasty to clean up, and maybe it'll touch one of the MOSFETs, and then you're just basically screwed your whole thing up. And then you end up desoldering like a pin or two. See that? That was one of those moments where we almost had issues. Look how close this MOSFET is to the pad. Why, HGLRC? Do you want us to ruin it? Alright, so one more pad that we forgot, and it's right here. Okay, nice. Nice. And they give you this VCC here on the ESC, just in case you wanted to power a VTX through the battery voltage, and that would also be routed to the battery voltage. They're the smaller pads, but you want the bigger pads for the Xt60 or 30 or a JST, whatever your battery is going to be that you're going to set up. So let's go ahead and set this up like so. All right. Okay, so that's all good and done. Let's start with we're gonna do one motor together, and then we'll just skip the others. So let's just zoom out a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's take a look. We're gonna start with this motor here, and I'm just gonna do them straight flush. So there we go. That's gonna be up to here, and right about there is gonna be good. So let's cut this guy. Okay, twist the wire, and now we're gonna add a little solder. When you add solder to these motor wires, I highly recommend you don't do it on top of the flight controller, because sometimes the wire would slip and then just splatter solder on the FC, and which could be very difficult if you are not very experienced in removing solder off of specific things, or if you don't have the correct equipment to do it. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to grab a tweezers to hold it into place. And now I'm right-handed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the tweezers with my left hand so I could come in with my right hand. All right, let me just figure out the best way for me, because that one's a little bit hidden. Okay, yeah, well, yeah, so right now what's going on is I can't see that pin, and then we have a standoff in the way. So I have to be very, very careful. Make sure the tip is very, very clean. That's what she said, but you know, that's what I say too. No. Okay, I can't really tell, but we're gonna go ahead and hit this guy. Beautiful crunching sound. There we go. We got our first one in. Awesome. So let's just see it's gonna be good. We're gonna put tape around this. All right, so let's grab the second wire in line. It's gonna be this guy. I'm gonna do it right there. All right. Just need a little bit more. Make sure you twist them. Twisting is very important, because sometimes there could be just the smallest strand that you don't see, and just touching another phase of the ESC, or just touching something else, and next thing you know, your whole thing burns, and then you start blaming other people. So yeah, it happens. So there we go. Trim some of that off. I'm actually gonna hold it with my finger this time, and right, we're just gonna hit that right there. And you see that the tip of the soldering iron was dirty. That could have created more problems than I really want to deal with right now. So there we go. Beautiful. Very nice. Awesome. Now we're going to do one more, and then I'm going to go ahead and skip the rest. So let's just do one more together. And should be good. Right there is going to be good right here. This is where I want it. Okay. All right. So let's trim this. Okay. All right. Oh, we forgot to put solder on the wire here. Don't be lazy when building a quad, especially if you have one. So that's something to really consider. Do it proper so you don't have to come back, because sometimes when you have to come back and everything's connected, oh, it's a nightmare. You might have to. This was too long. Why did I leave it so long? It's alright, we'll fix it later. Alright. Alright, so we got one motor in. I'm going to go ahead and skip over the rest, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at it and see what's the next step. Alright guys, so the motors are installed, and I did use tape to hold them into place here so the wires don't get caught or just get ruined, because that's happened to me before. I decided not to use heat shrink just to reduce even the weight even more. No, but you could tell I used one here. It's because I had to extend two wires. I forgot which two. It's one on this one and one of these here. But that's not the point. Alright, let's take a look here. So I've gone ahead and installed the runcam right there. Just two screws. And everything's all set and done. Now let's go ahead and stick our flight controller into place. So we have to align it up with the pins here. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay. There we go. All right, so that's perfect. So now we are installed. We have our receiver and we have our camera. So let's go ahead and see if these screws are, these probably need to be shortened a little bit. These little nylon screws to hold it into place. So that's what I think we're going to do now. So let's go ahead and cut some of this off here. We're just gonna cut a little bit off, like right about here. It's gonna be good. And then just grab our screwdriver. Okay, so now I have the bottom standoff twisting, which I should not be twisting. I think it's because it's too long still, because the screw that's coming in from the bottom is taking a lot of space. So I'm just going to shorten it out a little bit more here. And that's good. Yes, there's no play. I could feel the TPU mounts that are mounting the ESC in place. Doing their dampening very good. It's a very nice tension that they have on those dampeners or those TPU adapter mount thingies. So I think this one might have cut it too short this time. We're gonna have to find a place to mount our receiver. Now when I did a pre-lineup or a preview or whatever you want to call it, so that's just in securely. So that's just looking beautiful right there. All right. So now we need to grab this guy. We need to figure out the front, and the front is that way. So that's good. And okay, so there we go. So we have, I think the video wire is too short. Oh no, it's not too short anyways. We don't fly like that. There we go. Perfect. So let's go ahead and grab the screws here and install the screws. I really love this frame. Now, I'm just loving it as putting it together. I don't know how it flies, but I have high hopes for this, like insanely high hopes. I wonder how much this thing's going to come out to weigh too also. So let's go ahead and grab our hex driver. All right. So the top plate is installed, as you can see here. But now we have this guy right here, and I'm thinking of just using something to mount it, maybe a zip tie to just hold it to that standoff right there, and to keep our bind button up, and then figure out something else with zip ties to set up our antennas here. So yeah, I think here's gonna be good. This is where I'm gonna set it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a zip tie, and maybe we could use the zip tie to also manage the antennas also. So we got a standoff right there. So I think that's what I'm going to do, but I might change this. I'm just going to take a look. There's probably other better solutions, but this is the fastest one that I just came up with. It seems pretty reasonable. I might use 2 zip ties. I want to keep the bind button up, as you could tell right there. So that's very important. So we don't, I could bind it, or if I needed to replace a transmitter or something. Not that I ever need to, but you know, it's nice to. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. That's perfect. So what happened here is my zip tie just broke because it was in -7 weather the other day. I'd left them in the car, and they become absolutely brittle and useless. So I need to grab another one. And this is what I hate about negative weather here. Just everything just start acting weird. Things start to break. Sometimes nothing works. Your car makes a weird noise. I just gotta be careful with this right now. Okay, so I want this to be up. You don't want to apply too much force on the zip tie here, because if you do, you can rip components off, which you really don't want, and I've done that before. All right, so yeah, that's solid. That's good. All right, so what we can do is we could use this here to heat shrink our antenna wires. Alright guys, so he is ready. I've gone ahead and added the zip tie with the heat shrink, and it's very nice, as you can tell right there. It came out absolutely beautiful, but now it's the moment of truth. Let's see its weight. This is everything minus the Xt60 connector. I'm waiting for a smaller gauge wire to create a Xt60 connector with smaller gauge, and that's why I didn't connect it just yet. So let's go ahead and grab the scale and see how much this guy weighs. So let's just take a look here. I haven't cheated just yet. And 163 grams. 64, 65. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's between 63. We'll say 64. We'll give it the worst. 164 grams for a 5-inch. That is insane. Like, literally insane. This is just going to be awesome. I have no idea what the hell to expect. Never flown anything like this before. So this is going to be pretty interesting. Overall, it came out absolutely clean, absolutely sexy, absolutely beautiful. And I don't know if you could hear it from my voice. I'm hella excited for this one. You have no idea. I mean, look at it. It's just, it's you know, it's even smaller than the XJB. Let's see the XJB, how much it weighs. Now, this is obviously a 3-inch. So let's just take a look here. All right, 127 grams without a camera, and the VTX obviously has the props on, but still, you know, this is just gorgeous for a 5-inch. 164 grams. Oh my god, I don't even know what to expect here. So overall, this was a very nice, beautiful, compact, clean, fast build that I'm very excited for. I'll leave a link to everything down below. I will be looking for different motors, but these are the motors I had at hand, and I really wanted to build in just to see its characteristics. And I remember, you know, these motors were picking up, you know, ZMR 250s with 3-inch props back in the day, so 6-inch props, which is insane, you know. So this is just going to be overall interesting, very interesting, actually. So I have to wait for the snow and the weather to clear up, which should be towards the end of this week. I have 2 quads to test flight that we've built on the channel, and should be pretty interesting. And yeah, that's it, guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please consider joining my Patreon. Help me support this channel. Bring in more ESCs and flight controllers to do the bench testing on. Currently, I'm waiting on some ESCs, and you could also, you know, for every $1 you put in, you have a chance to win a giveaway. Last month's giveaways, I just gave them out. They're the GTR 90, Diatone GTR 90, the awesome F100 Micro, pre-built, obviously. And yeah, consider joining Patreon. Help me support this mission. And you could also use affiliate links down there. Those greatly support the channel. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. See you guys. Take care.